And church just sucks. Church is like the worst place to be. I despise church in every capacity. And I don't care if my priest is gay, okay? It's the last thing I'm thinking about at church. So why do you give a f? I'm just saying. Let's talk about gay priests and apparently how they're not a thing, according to this guy named Brian Holdsworth, whose video we just watched about a question that atheists cannot answer that I felt I answered pretty easily. The question was, is slavery wrong? And I answered yes. Yes, it is wrong. So yeah, I just felt like that was too easy. I'm going to take a look at why he thinks gay priests are not a thing, because it says in the thumbnail, like the title is a question, but in the thumbnail it says no such thing as gay priests. So I want to take a look. Now, I personally believe, I don't really care what your religious belief is regarding like priesthood and whatever. If you don't think that any person, regardless of their sexuality or their gender or anything like that, can be a priest, just like based on like things they can't control about themselves, I'm sorry, but you're stupid, and that's a stupid thing to believe.
The question of gay priests and gay seminarians has been much in the spotlight lately, especially with comments made by Pope Francis, which I won't be repeating here. And so the media wants to know...
What was the comment?
Especially with comments made by Pope Francis,
saying gay slurs.
I won't be repeating here.
Oh boy.
And so the media wants to know, is the Catholic Church going to be more accepting of gay priests and seminarians soon, as if this is an inevitable development in the slow march of progress that not even the Catholic Church is immune to. And the more speculation and editorializing I read and hear about gay priests, not to mention the chattering and debating about it in Catholic online circles, it highlights for me how confused our understanding and language is on this topic, especially with respect to the word gay as a description of identity.
This fit's not much better than his other one. I don't like the sweater vest look. Is it a sweater vest or just a vest? I think it's just a vest. I don't like the vest look.
Because while homosexual activity isn't something new,
I don't think it's as bad, but I don't like it.
Is extremely novel compared to other times and places. And most modern people, from what I can tell, will just assume, well, that's a good thing, because surely we've become...
It's probably not as novel as you think it is. It just is because people were closeted gay and became priests and whatever, because probably partly because that was an easy reason to explain why you're not married to a woman. You know, like it was an easy out. I'm not saying that made it good for them, but I mean, priests have been gay for as long as there have been priests. I'm sorry, that's just a fact.
Much more accepting and welcoming. But I imagine people operating under those kinds of assumptions about history would be surprised to find that homosexual activity, especially between men among respectable people, was not uncommon in the ancient Greco-Roman world. It was actually super common for someone to have a respectable career, a wife and children, but also willing to go down to the gymnasium with his friends, get naked, work out together, and then accidentally escalate things into something else. Or they might go to a dinner party and talk philosophy among respectable people.
Brother, that was no accident. That was totally on purpose.
A little intoxicated.
I guarantee
you. And then
the
next thing you know, there's something like a homosexual orgy going on. This wasn't out of the ordinary, at least according to
Whoops, I slipped into an orgy. My bad.
It's the kind of thing that might feature in a Socratic dialogue. But if you or I could go back in time and witness such a party firsthand, like the one depicted in Plato's Symposium, in which a group of respectable statesmen, aristocrats, and philosophers get a little drunk and decide to start debating the meaning of love. And one orator insists that love is best portrayed by the relationship of an older man with a younger adolescent, maybe teenage boy, in which the older man can provide mentorship.
Definitely one of the more cringe moments of history, just gonna say.
Money and society connections, while the adolescent can offer his beauty through sexual favors. Meanwhile, another laments with great passion his unrequited love for Socrates and his many attempts to seduce the latter, only to be ignored or tricked into engaging in philosophical...
Also, I don't know to what extent it was like normalized to have that going on back then. Apparently it was pretty normalized, but I'd like to think it was not. You know, can I just pretend it was not okay to do that? I don't know. It just icks me out.
Dialogue instead. And if you were a person aligned with 20th or 21st century sensibilities, and you were able to witness such a gathering, you might say to the partygoers, "Oh, I see, you're gay." To which they would be like, "What does that mean?" And you might say, well, It's your sexual orientation that defines your social identity. It means that you are oriented to want to have sexual relationships
Yeah, they didn't really like have a word for gay back then, I don't think, which is based, if you ask me, honestly.
with members of the same
Like the
sex,
concept was not
or
the
perhaps
same.
even be in a monogamous romantic arrangement with another man. At which point they'd be like, whoa, take it easy. What are you talking about? I'm married to a woman. I have children and a family with a woman. But I like to have fun with my male companions from time to time. But that isn't some fatal
Bisexual.
orientation
Let's
or
go.
identity. To them, that would be like showing up at a dinner party in which there were some slightly tipsy people and then saying, oh, I see, you're all alcoholics. To which they would be like, I like to partake from time to time, but take it easy with the labels. You know, you're just being rude at this point. Because in the ancient world, they understood that a human being cannot and should not be reduced.
Is the guy saying he would also make this kind of mistake if he's not careful? I'm not sure what he's saying yet. I mean, I don't heavily disagree with anything he said so far, right? I think it's been fine. Although I'm not sure exactly how normal it was to have like underage relationships back then. I really don't know because I'm just not historically read up. I would hope that it was not common, but I mean, what can you do? I don't know.
To their mere appetites, and that to assume your social identity and sense of belonging
only
and
thing
social
I've
status based
really
on
say
your
about it
mere
so far.
appetites is kind of
I was okay with a little gay sex, just a little bit,
degrading and dehumanizing. They would have understood that a human being can and should choose their behavior rather than merely succumb to their appetites to the point of being defined by.
Are we moving toward like this feels like, and I could be wrong, but it feels like it's moving toward it feels like it's about to say that pride is wrong is basically what I'm trying to say. Like gay pride is wrong, you know, because like we've defined ourselves by our sexual orientation, this, that, and the other. When in reality, and I've talked about this before, people define themselves by their sexual identity so much because it is apparently a problem to some people. And so when it's a problem, you get pushback from that. And you say, I'm a proud gay man. I don't care what you think, right? I'm not personally gay myself. I consider myself bisexual. But if I were gay and I was being told by society that it's wrong, then I'd push back and I'd say, no, it's not wrong. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm in mutual relationships with other men as a man. I'm a gay man, and I'm making that part of my identity to make you understand that it's not wrong. I'm just normal. If you didn't have people thinking that being gay was wrong, you wouldn't have people who are gay needing to push back and say, no, it's not wrong. It just makes sense to me.
By them. They might think that if the mood was right and they had no moral misgivings about something, well, sure, I'm going to indulge in this thing
Okay,
tonight.
mods, true.
But just because I did on occasion, it doesn't mean that I need to be labeled by that indiscretion and adopt some socio-political identity.
So wait, this sounds like he's saying that he's had gay sex before, but he's not gay. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. Like, I don't know if that's where he's going with it, but that is exactly what he sounds like he's headed toward.
Based on it. I've tried to argue elsewhere what the ancient and medieval world would have thought of our sensibilities on this using this analogy. So imagine a man standing on a beach shore who notices someone struggling in the water and in need of help. And he's immediately aware of two competing desires within him. One is
giving
to
insecurity.
be courageous and rescue the person in danger. The other is for self-preservation and safety. And ultimately, he decides to risk his own life to rescue the endangered person. Now, let me ask you this question, because he had a desire to avoid danger and remain where it was safe. Should we consider...
By the way, this is a tangent, but okay, so it's one thing if somebody literally cannot swim, right? But if somebody's trapped in like a current, don't dive in to get them. Don't do it. Not unless you have safety equipment with you. I'm just saying.
Consider him and even identify him as a coward. Should he think of himself and consider himself a coward because he had this strong desire to avoid danger? Should he internalize this identity and frame every future decision through this lens?
Let's put it this way. Only rescue people that you believe yourself capable of rescuing while also remaining alive yourself. After a thorough assessment of the situation.
Because it isn't our desires, emotions, or our appetites that should define us. It's what we do with them. You and I are not the sum of our appetites because that's, again, just it's so degrading. We are the sum of our choices and our...
But gayness isn't necessarily an appetite. Like, the fact that you have to describe it as an appetite, that's like gross to me. It's just a state of being. It's just a preference. It's just a sexual preference. That's all it is.
Actions. The modern world says because you have certain feelings or cravings, not only should you refuse to govern them or resist them, because that wouldn't be true to yourself, but you should even go as far as to identify yourself by those feelings. A person might have.
Yeah, I knew it. See, I called it. I called it. Like I said, identifying yourself as a gay man, a proud gay man, only is a thing because people like you, homophobic, push back and say, well, no, you actually can't be gay. You're not allowed. Okay? I am allowed to be gay if I want. I can go fuck another dude in the butt if I want. Okay? And so, like, governing those thoughts, right, in his mind means you simply ignore your urge to date other men if you're a man, right? Like you suppress it. You suppress those feelings when there's really no reason to. There's no reason to do that, okay? You don't have to do that. But he's telling you that you have to because it's bad for some reason. And that's why people define themselves as being gay. That's why there's a pushback in this capacity.
Strong feelings tempting them to seek out a liaison with members of the same sex. But they might also want to have a wife and a family someday, and knowing that the more he indulges in same-sex activity, the more he will want it, because that's how our appetites work.
Not necessarily.
So he resolves to encourage.
Actually, like, over time, like, I've wanted sex less and less, as it turns out. Like, I don't know, like, I still want it now and then, and I get, like, you know, like, oh, really strong urges sometimes. I've just noticed that as I'm getting older, like, and this isn't going to be for everybody, but as I personally age, I feel myself kind of going away from, like, wanting sex all the time. You know, like, I have other hobbies and interests. I have crocheting. I have streaming. I have work to do. I have, you know, there's just so much else to do. I have One Piece to watch. So, like, I feel like that's a little bit fallacious to say that the more that you partake in something, the more that you want it, you know? Yeah, less horned up.
His desires for
procreative
sexuality and avoid the rather immediate and short-term satisfaction of his homosexual.
Not purge, upgrade the white names.
Sexual passions. So in all of that context, I tend to agree.
Right. But people who are straight also do the same thing, just with people who are of the opposite sex. But you don't think that's as bad for some reason, which is stupid.
With the ancients, to insist on identifying someone as gay because they have certain desires, even desires that they act on sometimes, I think that significantly dehumanizes a person. And yes, I'll admit there are a lot of Catholic priests for whom this is a temptation. I'm not going to get into why that is or what the church should be doing about it, but yes, it's a reality and a problem in the Catholic Church. But to speak of...
I love it when, like, you're part of the problem and then you're going around saying, well, you're hurting yourself by identifying as gay, man. You're just identifying yourself as your sexual interest, and that's degrading and humiliating. It's like, you're the one who degraded and humiliated gay people for centuries, man. Like, your religious institution did this, okay? You played yourself. And now that it's more acceptable to be gay in broader society, you feel like you have to push back harder and force gay people to suppress themselves. And also, we haven't gotten to gay priests at all yet, so I guess we're getting to that now.
Such priests as gay priests is just wrong, because if they made vows of chastity and meant to keep them, then that's what should define them, not their temptations. A person committed to chastity is someone for whom...
It's not a temptation, it's a preference. If you are a man and you prefer to engage in relationships with other men, that makes you gay. It doesn't matter if you're a priest, it doesn't matter if you stay chaste, it doesn't matter. It is a descriptor of your sexual and romantic preferences. That's what it means when we say gay, okay? Sexual and romantic preference for somebody of the same sex or gender as you, okay? That's what gay means. So you can be a gay priest in that capacity, just like you can be a priest with blue eyes or a priest that likes pizza, you know? Even if you take a vow to never eat pizza again because it's an indulgence, you know, which you could do, by the way, and just as justifiably saying, well, I'm not going to have sex because it's an indulgence, whatever. Like, you could just as easily say, I'm not going to eat pizza because that's an indulgence, right? You can still be a priest that likes pizza. Like, you can still like pizza and not eat it. So you can be a gay priest and not have gay sex.
Their sexual temptations should be the last thing to use.
That would make you a gay priest.
To slap a label on them. It would be like looking at someone who is tempted to overindulge in junk food or just food in general, but commits themselves to a healthy diet and largely manages to do so. And then...
I would argue, by the way, that would make priests asexual by his definition. So, based.
And calling them like an in-the-closet glutton who needs to embrace their identity. Like, that's your identity whether you succumb to it or not. That, on the face of it, is utterly ridiculous. And even if such
Hold on, I gotta go
glutton
back.
largely manage to overindulge in junk food or just food in general, but commits themselves to a healthy diet and largely manages to do so, and then calling them like an in the closet glutton.
I would call that somebody who likes junk food. There's still somebody who likes junk food unless their preferences change during the diet, which can happen. But there's still somebody who likes junk food, you know, more than likely. So in that capacity, it's exactly the same as saying you're a gay priest. It's a preference.
Who needs to embrace their identity. Like, that's your identity whether you succumb to it or not. That, on the face of it, is utterly ridiculous.
I mean, kind of.
Even if such priests...
Kind of, yeah. Like, I like junk food. I like candy, guys. I love candy. I have a huge sweet tooth. But when I'm trying to lose weight, I don't eat it, okay? That doesn't mean that liking candy defines me as a person. But what it does mean is that it's part of what defines me as a person. I like candy. That's part of who I am. That's a preference that I have. Just like I'm bisexual, okay? I like mostly girls, all right? And sometimes I like a guy here and there, if they look like girls. This is my main preference.
Out of weakness, break their vows of chastity, still doesn't mean that they are gay priests. It means that they are a sinner who needs to make amends in order to succeed in their promises and in their commitment.
But why specifically gay? Because priests are supposed to be chaste in general. Chaste? Is it chaste or chaste? One or the other. I think chaste. They're supposed to be chaste, okay? Or is it chaste? I don't know.
Chaste.
Chaste, okay.
Now,
So you could but my point is you could just as easily say that straight sex is sinning, but they don't say that. They hyperfixate on the gay part because they're bigots.
Of course, some priests who break their vows because they don't intend to keep them. And in those cases, it would be better to call them frauds than gay priests. They aren't priests who happen to be gay.
But then you're also a fraud if you have straight sex as a priest, because you're supposed to be chaste. Both directions. Any direction. Doesn't matter. You're not supposed to have sex. So the fact that you bring gayness into it just speaks to your bigotry.
They are imposters posing as something they have no intentions to be. And that's a whole other kind of very serious and scary.
I would also just wonder why that's so serious and scary. It's like, what's so scary about a priest who would prefer, like, it doesn't impact your ability at all to like preach the Bible to me. You know, you can just as easily preach and interpret the Bible insofar as you interpret it, right? And speak about it in front of everybody on a big podium while little Timmy, 6-year-old Timmy, is eating his Cheerios because you're hanging out in the baby room because you got like 5 kids with you because you're Catholic. And little Timmy's eating his Cheerios while, you know, Susan is on her phone, and you got to tell her to like, yay, put the phone down. But, you know, she's 14, so like, she's going to do what she wants, and she won't listen to you as a parent, you know. And then you got like the baby crying, and you have like people staring at you because the baby's crying, you know, and it's church and it's supposed to be quiet. And church just sucks. Church is like the worst place to be. I despise church in every capacity. And I don't care if my priest is gay, okay? It's the last thing I'm thinking about at church. So why do you give a f? I'm just saying.
Problem. And the only other reason I can think of why we might want to embrace this language of gay priests would be if this was some kind of a title rather than a description, which of course is absurd on the face of it. Although something like it does seem to be common in a lot of mainline Protestant sects. So unless we want that kind of fiasco on our hands,
what
it should be fairly
fiasco?
obvious that we will want to avoid
people having consensual
adopting
sex?
their lexicon. Can I ask you to stick around for 1 extra minute? Because
okay.
if you enjoyed that, well, first of all,
better make it good.
Thanks for watching. But now I could really benefit from your help, which you can do in a couple of ways. You can check out my sponsor, Real Estate for Life.
No thanks. I'm good. Yeah, just as dumb as the last video. He's fun though. Might dive down the rabbit hole with this guy. He's got some fun ones to react to. So I've been looking for a new punching bag. Should be fun. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more. Hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos, and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.